Imagine standing on the edge of history, a moment where the world feels like it's holding its breath, suspended between tyranny and freedom. Now picture the exact second when that balance breaks. When young Americans, barely more than kids, step into the storm that will decide the future of humanity. This is the story of D-Day, the day courage itself took form, crossed the English Channel, and began to reclaim a continent swallowed by darkness. And if you think you know the story, stay with me, because this journey goes deeper than the beaches, deeper than the battles. This is the story of how America helped break the spine of Nazi Europe, one sacrifice, 1 inch, 1 heartbeat at a time. Welcome to a chapter of history that changed everything. Before we reach the morning of June 6, 1944, we must understand the world Americans were fighting to save. Europe in the early 1940s was a continent under chains. Hitler's armies had swept across Poland, France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Norway, and much of Eastern Europe. Cities that once echoed with music, markets, and everyday laughter now echoed with the march of boots and the roar of propaganda. Jews, dissidents, intellectuals, underground fighters, millions were hunted, deported, or executed as Nazism spread its shadow across a fractured world. Britain stood battered but unbroken. The Soviet Union bled by the millions on the Eastern Front. Resistance groups fought in alleyways and forests, knowing that every whisper of rebellion could mean execution. And across the ocean, Americans watched the world burn, until Pearl Harbor pulled the United States into the inferno. America began to mobilize like never before. Factories roared to life. Shipyards built vessels faster than the enemy could sink them. The sons of farmers, factory workers, teachers, and college students put on uniforms. Women stepped into industrial roles that reshaped a nation. A country still recovering from the Great Depression transformed into the arsenal of democracy, and its courage would soon be tested on the deadliest coastline on Earth. By 1943, Allied leaders knew the truth. There was no defeating Hitler unless the United States and its allies landed soldiers on the European mainland. Air power could weaken Germany, but it couldn't liberate cities. Naval power could blockade, but it couldn't topple regimes. To crush Nazi Europe, the free world would have to storm its fortress. This plan was given a simple name, Operation Overlord, but there was nothing simple about it. For months, American and Allied planners studied every tide, every moon phase, every wind pattern over the English Channel. Engineers tested floating tanks, amphibious vehicles, and artificial harbors. Intelligence officers fed the Germans false information, convincing Hitler that the invasion would strike at Pas-de-Calais instead of Normandy. Thousands of voices, hands, and minds worked in secrecy while the world waited for a strike that could either save civilization or doom it. And then came the decision from General Dwight D. Eisenhower, the calm, steady commander chosen to lead the greatest amphibious assault in human history. He carried the weight of nations on his shoulders. He knew that thousands might die within minutes. He even wrote a note accepting full responsibility if the landing failed, a note he hoped no one would ever see. He folded it, placed it in his wallet, and prepared to change the world. Now imagine the night before D-Day. The English coastline is filled with the silhouettes of ships, thousands of them. Men sit quietly, cleaning rifles, writing letters, staring at photographs from home, holding on to whatever gives them strength. Some pray. Some joke to hide their fear. Some simply close their eyes and try to picture the sunrise, not knowing if they'll live to see it. June 6, 1944, just after midnight. The first stage begins. American paratroopers of the 82nd and 101st Airborne leap into the darkness over Normandy. The moon is barely visible through the clouds. Anti-aircraft fire bursts around the planes like fiery claws. Many troopers miss their drop zones and land miles from where they're supposed to be. Some get stuck in trees. Some drown in flooded fields. But scattered or not, They fight. They block German reinforcements. They seize bridges. They hold crossroads. And they sow confusion across the countryside, just as they were trained to do. Hours later, as dawn approaches, the horizon begins to glow with something that looks like a second sunrise, the reflection of an armada so vast that it seems impossible. More than 5,000 ships and landing craft stretch across the channel. Destroyers, battleships, troop transports. The greatest fleet the world has ever seen. Now comes the moment burned into American memory forever. The landing craft doors swing open at Utah Beach, at Omaha Beach, and hell erupts. At Utah Beach, the current pushes the landing craft off course. But in one of the most fortunate twists of fate in the entire war, the Americans land in a weaker German sector. "We'll start the war from here," one officer famously says, and Utah Beach becomes a success. Omaha Beach is different. The cliffs are steep. The German defenses are brutal. Machine guns tear through the air. Mortar yank men off their feet. The water turns dark with sand and smoke and blood. Many soldiers never even make it to the shore. Others cling to obstacles, breathless, disoriented. But step by step, yard by yard, they push forward. Officers rally anyone who can hear them. Medics race through gunfire to pull the wounded to safety. And ordinary Americans, no different from those who walk our streets today, become extraordinary. By midday, the breakthrough comes. The Americans climb the bluffs, silence the guns, and open the gateway into Nazi Europe. As the sun sets on D-Day, the Allies have secured the beaches. The losses are heavy. The pain is real. But the impossible has been done. Hitler's fortress has been breached. And now the real battle begins. Over the next weeks, the Americans fight through hedgerows, thick, ancient walls of earth and vegetation to turn every field into a death trap. The Germans are everywhere, hiding behind corners, waiting in shadows. Progress is slow, grinding, suffocating. But each day, the U.S. Army grows stronger. More supplies pour into Normandy. More troops reinforce the lines. And little by little, the Allies push farther inland. By late summer, the Americans liberate Paris. Crowds flood the streets, cheering, crying, embracing soldiers as if welcoming home lost family. Flags wave. Church bells ring. For the first time in years, hope rises across Europe. But Hitler refuses to surrender. He orders a final desperate attack, a massive surprise offensive in the winter of 1944, known as the Battle of the Bulge. In the frozen forests of Belgium, American troops face blistering cold, dwindling ammunition, and relentless assault. Towns are surrounded. Units are cut off. The situation seems hopeless, but the Americans do not break. In the town of Bastogne, when the Germans demand surrender, General Anthony McAuliffe replies with a single legendary word: nuts. The message is clear. We're not giving up. Reinforcements arrive. The sky clears. American aircraft return. The German offensive collapses. And the road to Germany opens wide. By early 1945, the Allies are closing in on Hitler from the west, while the Soviet army pushes in from the east. German cities crumble. Factories shut down. Fuel runs out. Soldiers surrender in droves. Even Hitler's closest allies begin to lose faith. Deep beneath Berlin, in a bunker surrounded by ruins, Hitler realizes the end has come. He cannot escape. He cannot win. And on April 30th, he takes his own life. His empire, built on hate, fear, and brutality, dies with him. 1 week later, Germany surrenders. Victory in Europe. The war in Europe is over. And millions of people across the world breathe a sigh of relief they feared they might never feel again. But the true victory came long before the surrender. It came on those beaches, in those fields, in every moment when someone chose courage over fear. It came from Americans who didn't fight for glory or conquest, but for a world worth protecting. The fall of Nazi Europe wasn't inevitable. It was earned. Earned by those who crossed oceans, stormed beaches, held the line, and refused to let darkness win. So when we look back at D-Day, at Normandy, at the march from the beaches to Berlin, we aren't just remembering a military campaign. We're remembering a generation that believed freedom was worth any cost. A generation that stepped forward when the world needed them most. A generation that shaped the world we live in today. And that is why this story matters. Not just as history, but as a reminder that courage can change the course of humanity. If this journey moved you, if it gave you a deeper respect for the men and women who fought for freedom, take a moment right now. Hit like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more powerful documentaries brought to life. Your support helps this history live on and ensures these stories are never forgotten.